everyone. Thank you for joining us here today at VodPod Media Studios. My name is Kirsten Thompson. I am your host of More Than Magic. Before we get started and we really get into the show, I really would like to ask anyone who's watching now, or if you're watching the replay later, stop, like this video, share it. That is the only way that we will get all of these amazing guests, out into the blogosphere, out into the social media, the internets, so that, more people can see these interviews. So we are a Black and Brown owned, operated visual production, online media production company in San Antonio, Texas, right in the heart of the East Side. And we have an amazing guest. I'm so excited. Danielle Campbell Steans. Thank you for joining us, Danielle.
Thank you for having me.
This is kind of serendipitous, because before the show, we were talking about how I've lived in San Antonio for a while now. And we met by happenstance at the post office.
At the post office
Yes.
during COVID.
During COVID, while I'm shipping out jewelry and clothes.
Yeah.
And we struck up a conversation. And in that conversation, you revealed to me that you own San Antonio Ballet School.
Yes. Yes, I do.
So that is exciting for so many reasons. And we'll get into all of them because it's very, very layered. But I guess my first question is, how did you end up in San Antonio?
I was dancing in Nashville, and I remember I was sort of at a point where my agreement had ended, and I thought I might go and be a flight attendant because I love to travel so much. And I come from a family where my parents worked for the airlines. And my mom said, do one more audition. And so there was an audition here for the company in San Antonio. And I thought, San Antonio? I was like, I never thought I would live in Texas, but, I'll give it a try. And
Right.
so I did. I came. The director showed favor on me and really gave me skills and showed me like how to manage a ballet company, how to teach, how to really be involved with the students, and I still had the opportunity to perform, and so I stuck around.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I think, I don't want to be presumptuous, but I think at some point in their life, every little girl, whether they're Black, brown, otherwise, every little girl at some point has said, I want to be a ballerina.
Absolutely, yes.
Even if that dream changes to something else later. So how old were you when you got, I don't even want to call it the bug because that sounds silly, but when did you get the inclination that not only do you want to be a ballerina, like you're really going to do it, you're going to go for it?
I remember a moment. I started dancing when I was 4 years old, right? Because
Okay.
like everyone else, you want to dance and you want to wear a tutu. And,
Yes, all the girly stuff.
and I did lots of things. I did ballet, tap, jazz, acrobatics, baton, and my director told my mom, you should think about ballet for Danielle. I see that would be, a good path for her. And so my mother took me to Kansas City Ballet, and I began training there when I was 9 years old. And I'll never forget, there was a moment where we had rehearsals for the Nutcracker, and I was invited to perform as a student in the production. And for some reason on that day, we were allowed to watch the company perform. And I saw the Sugar Plum Pas de Deux, and I thought to myself, when I saw this dancer dancing, and she just looked so free and so beautiful. And I knew in that moment, I was 10 years old, I knew that was what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you're 10 years old. You are going to ballet classes. You
Yes.
know that this is, you're going for this. Were there other little ballerinas that looked like you in the classes that you went to?
I most of the time was the only, or maybe there was one other. I at my home studio or home school, there was a dancer who was a few years older than me, who I looked up to, who was a Black dancer, and she was very good.
Right.
But no one in my class. And I also never had a Black ballet teacher.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay. So this probably really affected or informed your decision to become a teacher yourself.
Um, you know, yes, yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, and no. I think it's important for children to be coached by people who are talented,
Absolutely.
regardless of what they
True.
look like. But
Absolutely.
I think that here in San Antonio, having the opportunity to show young girls that you can be a Black ballet dancer is
Yeah.
amazing. But there are many others. It was just my experience that I wasn't surrounded by many
Right.
other Black dancers, but there are phenomenal ballet companies. There's the Dance Theater of Harlem in New York,
Yes. Yes.
and I remember getting a dance magazine in the 90s and seeing, Lauren Anderson on the cover. And
Right.
so I knew that these people existed,
Mm.
but in my experience, I was pretty much
Right.
the
Yeah.
only girl. Sometimes I would have, maybe there was a boy or two boys, but
Okay.
not many other girls.
Right. So you grew up knowing like, okay, this world is out there. I just can't touch it quite
Yes.
yet. It's a little bit outside of my
Yes,
reach.
and I think I have to give credit to my teachers. They are very educated and, gave me opportunities to study outside of Kansas City. So I would go to summer intensives in Seattle and, New
Mm.
York and Philadelphia. And so I would see other people in
Right.
those circles, but still definitely the majority was,
Yeah.
I was definitely the minority.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you use an expression. You said pas de deux, and not everyone knows what that is. So anytime I'm interviewing someone, and there may be like terminology or phrasing that everyone's not familiar with, I like to ask. So what is pas de deux? I mean, I'm familiar with it, but I think it's a great opportunity for learning.
Oh, absolutely. And I didn't even think of it.
No, no,
So
it's okay.
yes, but it's a dance of two. It's
Mhm.
usually, towards the end of the ballet. And in this moment, it was, a woman and a man, and they were
Mhm.
doing the Sugar Plum Fairy and the Cavalier from the Nutcracker. So, yeah.
Right, right. So is that because the Sugar Plum Fairy is the one that you witnessed, and that was the one that did it for you? Is that still your favorite production to this day? Do you have? Is it even possible to have a favorite?
I have many favorites.
Uh-huh.
I love the Nutcracker.
Okay.
It's timeless. It's enchanting. It's magical, and I love Christmas.
Yeah.
So definitely a favorite. But I also love Swan Lake, and
Mhm.
I love Romeo and Juliet, and
Yeah.
and there are even more full length ballets, I think, that have really great stories that people don't know about.
Coppelia.
And yes,
Firebird.
yes, yes, absolutely. And so, everything has something a little bit different and unique, but I would say, yes, definitely Nutcracker is up there, but
That's
Swan Lake, I mean,
okay.
Tchaikovsky's scores.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yes.
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I was one of those girls that wanted to be a ballerina when I was little, but I wanted to be everything. Like I wanted to be a ballerina, but I wanted to be like an astronaut, and I wanted to be a fashion designer. And then I just wanted to boss people around. I was like, Mom, I just want to have a job where I just tell people what to do.
Yeah.
But you grow up and you realize you can't just boss people around all the time. So you're 10 years old and you've said, this is what I want to do. How many hours a day? Because ballet is it's a fine art. And you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I almost feel like it's also a sport. I don't like to use the word sport, so maybe you can give me a better word. But it is so intense. And I think because of the delicacy of the moves and the grace and the elegance, people don't see how insanely intense it is to train to become a ballerina. So if you don't mind just sharing with us like what your routine, like your regimen and your practice, what that looked like, so people can really appreciate like it's no joke.
Sure, absolutely. And I want to say that you are 100% correct. It is very intense. Dancing is. It is an art form, and I believe that it should be appreciated. Although there are many dance and ballet competitions, I really focused on the training.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I began at Kansas City Ballet, I think I was training maybe 2 days a week at, 9 and then 10, 3 days a week. And then from there, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days a week. And then if there was a performance, seven days a week. But I wanted to be there. I wanted to be in that space. I loved everything about it. I loved, arriving at the ballet bar and seeing my friends. I loved my teachers. I loved learning something new. I loved the music that the pianist was playing. And
I could see it in your face. You're like reliving every moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I really, so a lot of people would, especially my schoolmates or classmates would say, Danielle, you're always going to the ballet studio. Won't you come and, hang out with us over here? Oh yeah, I will. But, I was just a bunhead.
Yeah, right. I've heard that before.
Bunhead. Yeah. So yeah, it was very intense. And then when I was 14 years old, I went to a boarding school for ballet outside of Boston. And it became even more intense because we would do our academics for the first part of the day, and then we would have our dance in the afternoons. And I remember my mother dropping me off at the school, and she got my dorm room, together, and she looked at me and she said, Danielle, if you want to go home, it's not too late. And I said, no, Mom, absolutely not. I'm staying.
Wow.
I'm staying here. And I had some of the best experiences of my life there, and still have because of ballet.
And you were 14 at boarding school. Yeah. Wow. So I'm curious about, obviously you're all training and you're all there in this common place because you want to be like the best of the best. Is it easy to form friendships and relationships, or is it very, I don't want to say is it very competitive? How were you able to navigate just bonding with other girls and having friendships, or was that tough?
Yes and no. I think that it different circles can be very competitive.
Mm-hmm.
But I come from a big family. I'm one of 6 and I'm in the middle. Oh. And so I think I was always fighting for my parents' attention. So I felt like I could make friends, even with the mean ones. You know what I mean? I'd be like, hey, I'm Danielle. Let's be friends.
Oh my goodness. So I'm very much the same way. Most of my adult friends, I walked up to them at some point and were like, you're amazing. I want to be. So I get that. Yeah. I've done that before as an adult, so I wasn't a kid.
I still do that now
too. No. It gives you entree into worlds that you might not otherwise have if you had just waited for something to happen or someone to approach you.
That's right.
Yeah. But I've seen a lot of documentaries about ballet and about the training and about the environment. And I was asking you that question because there seems to be, based on what I saw, which was, a snapshot, that it can be very just intense on a interpersonal level.
Yes.
And that sometimes finding those real friendships or bonds, especially because you were a teenager. So
yes.
you're finding out who you are, you're going through puberty, your
yes.
body's changing.
Yes.
And that's something I want to ask you about because you're very petite and you're lean.
Oh,
but
thank you.
Also, I know that sometimes being a Black dancer, being a Black ballerina, even when you're small, you may have a little booty. You may have some hips when the other girls don't. Was that something that you were ever confronted with, or yeah?
Yes, definitely.
It's tuck your butt, and it's I can't.
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I was very petite
Mm-hmm.
and very small,
Mm-hmm.
and looked like a string bean. And I remember going through puberty and having a really hard time with it. I remember there was a performance of Serenade, and I was invited to perform in it. It's a big deal. Serenade is choreographed by George Balanchine, who's the founder of New York City Ballet.
Yes.
And so, you want to be in the room when this is happening. And I remember the ballet mistress came to my mother and said, we really want Danielle to perform, but, unfortunately she's too big. And, Yeah, and my mother is so real and honest,
Mm-hmm.
and I to this day appreciate that relationship. And she was just very, you know, I remember the car ride home. She was just very honest with me and said, "Is this something that you really want to do? Do you know what I mean? Like if this is something that you really want to do, yeah,
Sorry, my phone's going off,
that's
but I
okay."
am listening. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but if this is something that you want to do, think about, the aesthetic of ballerinas, what they look like, and you're already different just because of who you are.
Right.
So there wasn't really the space to be both.
Yeah.
And a part of me, I look back at that time, and if I could go back in time to that girl, I would just give her a big hug. It was a
Yes.
struggle, because your body is changing. You have all of these emotions that are
Right.
going on, and you're competing against your friends for these spots.
Right.
And but I did what I needed to do, and
Yeah.
safely and correctly, so that I could perform.
Right.
But not without the support of my mom. It was a commitment on the whole family. Like, we all changed the time that we ate dinner. We changed,
Mm.
how dinner was prepared, because we're so close, and we're all committed.
Yeah.
You know.
No, that's beautiful though. I think that's how we get through so many things.
Yeah.
Like you need the village.
Yes.
And in this modern world that we live in, there's an idea that like I can do it by myself. I got this. But that expression, no man is an island, no woman is an island, it's very true. So it's really affirming to hear that you were able to get over that hurdle with the love and support of your family, and that everyone was willing to like eat
Oh
differently.
no,
That's
I no, my brother, he was hiding
there's always
sodas in his bedroom underneath, and there was definitely a lot of that, and then
right.
teasing me, don't you want some of these?
Right.
I mean, that's
That's a
gonna
brother
happen.
for you.
Yeah, but yeah, but for the most part, like, my mom, she was just, okay, if we're gonna do this, and she's still like that. She's
Yeah.
the leader of the pack, and she's like, if we're doing this, then let's go. Let's be
Right.
committed, and let's go all the way. Let's be the
Yeah.
best that we can be.
What you're sharing with me reminds me a lot of what I hear a lot of young models go through. Beautiful. They have command of their bodies. They're very self-aware. But I remember having a conversation with a young model, and she was maybe 16.
Mm-hmm.
Gorgeous girl, like 5'10", like her legs were the length of my entire body almost.
Mm-hmm.
And they told her, you're just too hippie. And she was already like a very, very small too. And I remember like putting my hands on her hip, and I'm like, sweetheart, like, this is your architecture.
Mm-hmm.
Like, your structure is like, you're not going to be able to get much smaller. So you have to figure out, maybe that space wasn't the right one for you, or maybe there's a little something you can do, but you're still beautiful nonetheless. And it sounds like your family affirmed you in that way. Like, you still belong.
Yeah.
We're going to help you as much as we can. But yeah, your mom sounds dope.
Yes, I think she is.
Shout out to mom.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah. And so where is your family? So I know you were in Kentucky. No, not
Nashville.
Kentucky, Nashville.
Yes.
I always get to Kentucky and I don't know why I do
Yes.
that. You were in Nashville. You went to boarding school in Boston.
Yes, and I danced in Atlanta.
Okay.
I spent some time in Chicago, and did summers at different cities. So, but my family lives in Kansas City. My immediate
Right.
family is in Kansas City, and my
Okay.
extended family is on the East Coast. They're
Got
New
it.
York and Philadelphia.
Got
So,
it.
yeah.
So I think there's probably a lot of people who may not understand, not to assume, but ballet is not necessarily it's not something that everyone's familiar with. So, the structure of a dance company looks a certain way. And I would
Yes.
love for you to talk about that, because it's not a whole bunch of dancers just getting on stage
No.
and just dancing. Like, there are principles. Well, I'll let you explain it.
Yes. So I've worked with several companies. Some do it by rank. So they're apprentices, they're trainees, they're apprentices, they're corps de ballet members, soloists, principal dancers.
Right.
And then there are some who just prefer that you're all company members,
Mhm.
but the roles are there. You know who's
It's an
who's who.
unspoken.
Yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
So yeah, there's definitely moments where I was, in both types of, situations or
Mhm.
scenarios where you're in a room full of people. You show up to work 9 a.m. Like a
Yeah.
job. You start with an hour and a half ballet class. That's the beginning of your day. And then you go into rehearsals.
Mhm.
We would generally rehearse from, 11 to 2 o'clock, have a lunch break until 3, and then come back till 6.
Wow.
And so, in the whole time, you're moving and,
Goodness.
learning.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're working on more than one ballet at a time. So,
Really? No, I didn't know that was a thing because I
yeah,
would think, I mean, it's so strenuous that you
yes,
can only, so that's something you've personally done is,
yes. And I would have my little dance notebook. I tell all my students, and if you're watching, make sure you have that. But yeah, I would write down my choreography. Okay, we're doing this in the Nutcracker, and then I'm going to have this outreach performance over here. And so I don't want to forget that I do this.
wow.
And so, you have these like shows that are ongoing
Right.
throughout the season. And so you're responsible for keeping up with that choreography. So yeah, it is like a
Cool.
like a job.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is a job.
It is a job. Yeah. It's just a
Yeah.
creative job, but it
Yes.
is a job.
Mhm.
And, I've had most of the guests that I've had on the show thus far have been somehow, even if it's like tangentially related to a creative industry.
Mhm.
And I say this almost every show that one of the main things I want to impress upon people is even when you're creative, even when you are in the arts, it is still work.
It is.
It still takes dedication. It still takes being principled in certain areas. It still takes a tremendous amount of investment, whether that's time, money, energy. And so, yeah, it is a job. And I just learned something because I always thought that if you were in a company that when you're doing a performance, that's all you can do. I had no idea that you could take on multiple.
Yes.
Sounds exhausting.
Yes, but it's a fun kind of exhausting.
But I guess that's how you know how much you really love it because you can't keep up that kind of pace unless you're like you have a burning desire.
That's right.
Yeah,
And
to
you have
do
to
it.
be conditioned. And definitely the passion and the desire has to come first. And I think I worked with so many different people and dancers who were very talented, but I think mentally it was just so exhausting that, they weren't able to, fulfill their commitments.
Yeah.
We would always, kind of joke around at the beginning of the season. We took our full company picture and we're like, who's going to be here at the end,
Right.
because it is definitely, it takes a lot of commitment, and sometimes not just from you, the people around you, have to understand, hey, I'm working and I'm
Right.
performing, and no, I can't go to dinner because I've got to ice my feet and be ready for
Yes.
tomorrow. And, so there definitely a lot of commitment and sacrifice and dedication.
Right. So when you just said ice my feet, I'm always like, I'm such a visual. I don't know what, there's a word for when your visual connects to the words, but I can't think of it right now. But I just had like this, I just had this like vision of seeing a ballerina once after performance, like undoing all of the taping, I
Yes,
guess it's
the
called.
toe
And
tape. Oh,
yes. And I was just watching, like, I don't know if people understand also what it takes to dance, like on point, for example.
sure.
Um, and maybe you can share because the film that we were talking about earlier with Jennifer Edmonds Jones. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer.
I just sat like I remember sitting like on the floor and watching her just kind of prepare.
Mhm.
And when she went up on point, I was like, oh my goodness. And she did it with such ease and like facility that I was. But that is also something I think people think, oh, you're a ballerina. You just kind of pop up on your toes.
Right.
How much do you have to train to actually be able to do that?
So everyone is a little bit different. But I had been dancing probably 4 or 5 years before I started point. And it went something like this. You get your point shoes, and the first day, everyone's so excited. And the teacher sits you down and shows you how to tie your ribbons and take
Right.
care of your shoes. And then you get to the bar, and then you roll up onto those boxes. And then you're like, what is this? So my teacher would joke around, oh, do you want to go back? You were begging to go on point, but now you know, you want to go back. So it was like 10 minutes twice a week. Then it was 30 minutes twice a week. And we stood at the bar, holding on to the bar for a whole semester, just going up and down and up and down and up and down and out and in and out and in 1 foot. Yeah. And then we could move into the center, the second semester. And then the next year we could do a little bit more. So definitely a process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That takes so much dedication.
It is. And you're looking at yourself in a mirror and you're critiquing everything on your body from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet. Yeah. Right. You're trying to make these beautiful lines. And although you're dying inside, you're trying not to let it show. Right. But at the end of it, it's so rewarding when you're like, oh my gosh, I can turn, you know, I can balance, like, you know, and now I can learn a variation, you know.
And that's what's astounding, because you don't just go on point and just stand there. Like, you are traveling across the stage. You're doing pirouettes, or there's movement there.
Yes.
I'm fascinated by that, because I just remember being a little girl and like, and I went to a couple of classes and I was like, this is hard. I'm gonna go climb a tree.
Yes.
But I'm curious do you enjoy, like, do you just like to dance overall? Like, do you enjoy other forms of dance? I'm curious.
I do. Yeah. I love contemporary work. I love to move my body in different ways, although ballet felt the most natural to me. I do have an appreciation and love for modern dance as well. Yeah. Although I'm not the best at rolling on the floor and getting back up.
Right.
My best friend, Erin, if you're watching, she's probably laughing her head off, because she would just say, like, how could you, I don't know, that she loves to watch me tumble down and try to like get up like a little old lady. So that was not my thing, but I know that, you know, that takes, you know, incredible effort.
Yes.
And I love jazz. I like musical theater. And I think also too, something that people might not know is that we were expected to train in different dance forms. So just because we were ballet dancers, we were still required to take modern and jazz, because there are a lot of certain maybe positions that you learn in those classes that translate. So
just makes you more well-rounded, because one informs the other. Yeah,
it does.
So I have a lot of friends who love to dance ballroom and like Latin dancing, but like Afro Latin dancing, like salsa and bachata and all of that. And one of the conversations that we've been having recently is how, and this is tricky because ballet is so often considered like the foundation of being able to master other art forms, you know, other dance forms. And it's very, you know, you're elevated, you have long, clean lines, and certain dances that are cultural dances are grounded. Like, it's flat feet, it's, you know, and so I'm curious what your perspective is about ballet being, like, do you think all dancers should take ballet no matter what their discipline is?
I love ballet personally, and
like everyone needs it.
I think that there are so many great benefits just beyond pointing your toes and doing a releve, and just the form in general. So although you can still be very successful at dance and not train in ballet, there is a difference. You can tell when someone is. And not just in other forms of dance. I've even choreographed floor routines for gymnasts and taught them ballet because, you know, maybe they're working on their port de bras, their arms, or, you know, their posture. And so there are so many great, you know, things that you can take away from the technique of ballet. So I think that anyone who can should, even if you're not going to be a dancer.
Right.
And you learn about yourself. You learn about your body. You learn about spatial awareness. You know, I learned confidence, how to, because I was a very shy child. And, you know, one of the things I remember, you know, my teacher saying, you know, walk with purpose, you know, and, you know, this is how you're going to assert yourself. Even just moving from the bar to the center, you were expected to walk a certain way to get the next exercise. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And there was an order to it. And I loved that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you're saying this because it's very evident in just your personal carriage, like your command of your body. Our producer was joking, like when you sat down, he's like, "Oh, you're such a ballerina." But you do. You have like a poise and a composure and a natural elegance about yourself. He's laughing, but I mean, he just said that right before the show started.
Thank you for saying
am
that.
I slumping? You know what? I'm the opposite. I'm like, hey.
I have my moments too. I can do that too.
But I can see how it would benefit someone just to be able to move around in the world, because how we move is a form of communication. Even if you're not dancing, it's like everything is nonverbal communication.
Right.
So I can see you like floating into a room and people giving you some like added respect or deference.
I
you
hope
know,
so.
I could, yeah, and it would be well deserved, but I can see how that would, inform other areas of your life. So,
Yeah.
So I'm curious how you went to, because I always have to remember we just have an hour.
I know.
So you went from dancing at various companies throughout the United States, came to San Antonio after that one last audition.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the impetus for you saying, I am forming a ballet school, like here in San Antonio?
Yeah. My contract had ended with the company at that time. I was married and I had my son, who was almost 2 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And there I was in my garage, staining furniture, thinking about where I wanted to travel to next. And a woman reached out to me. Her name is Sandra Bravo. And she said, "Hey, I had this ballet school, but I've closed it. And, I hear you're still here and in town, and, you're a great teacher. You should consider having or opening your own ballet school." And I thought, okay, well, let me talk about it with my husband. And so we went to look at the studio space, and it was built out. It was beautiful. It was so charming, a little white cottage in Castle Hills. And I thought, well, let's give it a try. I do love to teach. I enjoy teaching. And I found that the different places where I was working were very specific in what they wanted taught to the students. And so oftentimes we were given a syllabus where we were told exactly what we were to teach, four tendus en croix, arm, head. And there are benefits to that, but also I feel that to be progressive and to really be inclusive of children, moving away from a syllabus and towards a curriculum would be better. And so I had the opportunity to study at American Ballet Theater in New York.
Right.
And I was, certified in the curriculum, the national training curriculum. And I loved it because, we were taught how to teach, how to look at that dancer as that individual and say, how do we get there without just beating in the same old, what we've been taught before, how can we be creative and still be respectful? And, the curriculum was developed with a ballet dancer, a physical therapist, and a psychologist. So all of these things have to come together in order to train. And I loved it. I fell in love with it. And I found that the students were loving it. So when I opened my studio, I had 3 students. One was my niece. And I'm sitting in the office crying like, oh my goodness, what did I just get myself into? But by the end of, that was in June, but by the end of August, I had 30. By the next May, I had 60. And then the next year we were building the space that we're in now. So I think that the students have really done well with it. Every summer since I've been open, I've been able to have a student train with the summer intensive at American Ballet Theater in New York. And that's something I'm very proud of because we're the only studio who really follows the curriculum here in town. And just going back to being a Black ballerina, I think that this curriculum, really was for everyone. So I have Black students, I have white students, I have Asian students, and I think we are the most diverse ballet school in San Antonio.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's beautiful. And there's something to be said for like democratizing high art. There's a certain beauty in that, and there's a certain power in that as well.
Yeah.
Because with all art forms, there's always things that are like protected and like, oh, that's not for you. So to be able to have people, to give people access to it is really beautiful and empowering.
It is, yeah.
So do you all have, because now I'm like, I want to go see a performance.
Yes.
So what does your, the students that are training to, possibly have a career, but I'm sure they also want to get the chance to perform. And so do you have like a certain amount of performances every year or recitals? How does that work?
Yes, so we do 2 major productions every year. So we do the Nutcracker in December.
Right.
And this spring we're doing the Firebird.
That's my favorite.
Yes, you mentioned it earlier, and I thought, oh, yeah.
Okay.
And then within the school, we have a demonstration for parents that's more of in the studio.
Okay.
And I think it's a little less intimidating for those who maybe want to dance but don't want to put on a costume and get on stage, and maybe they just need to be on home turf. So I think that we do really well, my teachers and I, providing opportunities to the dancers. We have a nonprofit youth performance company, and so we take the dancers who are within the school and we give them extra performance opportunities if they want that. So there are a couple of different plans, or paths that each student can go. In addition to ballet, we, offer contemporary, hip hop, tap, jazz. And the students do well. They really love it. They teach me a thing or two.
I know it's always the young students that are like bringing something to you, and it's like, oh, it's funny working with younger people because, at a certain age, I mean, you're young, but a certain age we feel like, oh, we know what's going on. And it's always like the younger ones that are like, no.
Yes.
Let me tell you about this.
They remind me all the time, even with not even saying words.
Right.
They'll just look at me like,
It's
okay.
the look. It's the look. Yeah. And I think we get that as parents too. So we kind of become accustomed to it. But it's great that you also, as the teacher, are teachable and allowing your students. I think that is an extra level of respect when you are willing to receive from your students as well. Every teacher that I've had with anything, there was like a little bit of like a reciprocal effort going on there, even though they were the teacher and the authority, to be able to like lend an opinion or give a different perspective. It empowers the students and then they love it more.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. I do definitely try to give them opportunities. There's some decisions that they can't yet make for themselves.
Course. Absolutely.
And so I have to remind them and say, you really want to do that? I think that this would be better for you. But for the most part, we, my staff and I, we definitely try to talk to them. Okay, what is it that you want? Okay, we know that you have a stressful school schedule. Let's develop a program where you can come in a little bit earlier and get out a little bit earlier so that you can get your schoolwork done. And so we work through things with them, and I think we're definitely very much a family. I, let the parents have my cell, and I say, if you want to, call me if you have a question, because I don't want to be that person that's so disconnected, right. From what's going on. And I love children. I'm one of 6. I love to teach, and so they are. For me, they are my children, and I'm not just teaching them steps. Like, I feel I have a big responsibility to raise them. They spend a lot of time with me, and their parents are trusting me to make these decisions when they're not there, and I'm working with them, for 4 hours.
And that's a big chunk of the day, especially when they already have school.
Yes.
And, I like that you said you allow them to have your number and contact you, because even as a parent, even if you don't use it, just the fact that it's there.
Yes.
And, you can avail yourself, or they can avail themselves to you. That's important, because it's hard to let your babies be with anyone.
It is.
It's like
my babies, I know.
Yeah. You want to keep them. And when my son was little, he was with me all the time. Like, I took him to Maxwell when he was think he was not even one. And they're like, you took him to a concert. I'm like, I don't want to leave him with anyone.
I know. I'm the same way.
So it's hard. So I'm curious. So you are the mother of two young boys and you have your husband. So you're like the girl in the family.
I am.
So what do your boys think of having a mother who teaches ballet, who is a ballerina? Like, do they, I mean, because I know they're still young. How old are they?
They are 8 and 4. Well, Grant will be 5 next week, so 8 and 5 almost.
So do they have a grasp at all of what that is?
Let me tell you how special my children are. You know, I just, I adore them. They are my whole life, and I truly live for them. William would come into the studio running around in circles. He would throw cones at I'm surprised I still have a business, honestly. He would throw cones at the girls dancing, anything to make a mess. And then Grant will get on his tricycle and just, you know, make laps while I'm teaching. So for them, I think it's just mom.
Right.
William, I think, told me the other day, he said, Mom, you're just so proper all the time. And I was like, William, I can get down too. You know what I mean? I'm still your mom. But I think for them, I'm just mom. And I think they think I just do this all day.
Right.
I twirl around and that's fine. But they are also very loving and, you know, they tell me I'm beautiful and I'm a princess and they sleep with me every night. And so I'm just, I'm in love with my boys. I really am.
No, the boy mother relationship is very special. It's a very sacred thing. I think it's beautiful.
It is.
So do you feel like either of your children are inclined toward the arts? Like, do you see certain things manifesting? I mean, they're very young, but sometimes you can look at a child and say, oh, I know they're going to be this way or that way. Like I have a cousin who just loved to argue all the time, and now he's an attorney. Do you ever see things in your babies that?
Oh, I see. They have so many natural talents and different talents, and you know, right now I do give them classes at home and stretch and work with them, and they have a few classes that they'll take here and there, and they're performing in the Nutcracker this year. This will be their second year, and so they have to have an appreciation for it.
Yes.
You know, it's a gentle nudge. And so when they're older, they can make those decisions of what they want to do. And who knows what they will be, but I try to expose them to as many things as possible. Grant has really taken a liking to farming like his father, and he has a rope and he goes around the house and he ropes everything and knocks things over. And William is a gamer, and he likes to build his own, you know, amusement parks, and you know,
he's probably playing Minecraft.
Yes, he does all of that. Roblox, Minecraft, and you know, they have different skills and talents. They love to swim, and they're pretty good at it. But who knows? They can do whatever, and you know, they can decide to do whatever. But you know, for now, you know, definitely they have to
have an appreciation.
An appreciation for the art form. Yeah. There are so many great benefits, and they'll appreciate it a lot later in life, I'm sure.
But I commend you for that, and that, you know, they don't have a choice, but
no, they don't.
But I do believe that exposing children to the arts at a young age, and helping them cultivate that appreciation is so important, because it teaches them how to accept like culture that may be different from what they're constantly surrounded by.
Sure.
It teaches them to appreciate expression and to allow other people to express themselves.
Right.
It's just a really good foundation.
Yes.
To have. But you said something, and I kind of chuckled to myself, because you and your husband and your sons, there's a photo of you like right when we first became friends on social media, and like you guys were all out like at this ranch or a farm, and I'm like, wait a minute. I thought she was a ballerina, and it was like the contrast was really interesting to me. Now obviously we are all a multitude of things. You're not just a ballerina, you're not just mom, you're not just anything, you're an expansive person, but it was just interesting. So I'm curious as to what that part of your life is like. Do you actually get out and like plant things, or do the boys kind of, well, I'm not calling your husband a boy, obviously, but do
It's okay.
the guys, do the guys do most of that, or do you participate as well?
You know, I wish I could say that I do, but I don't.
You're like,
I
"Not my
am more
thing."
of the, I'll have dinner ready for you boys when you're finished.
Yes.
I don't have a green thumb. My husband does, and he's able to grow anything and bring things back to life.
Awesome.
And my children are good with gardening and have their garden in the backyard. And then, of course, you know, my husband comes from a ranching, farming family. So they have those experiences of going out and getting on a tractor. I mean, I can't compete with that.
I love that.
You know, and they love it, and you know, completely enjoy it. But I think with my husband Drew, you know what drew me to him? No pun intended.
I know. I was like, that's so clever.
I think it was, you know, he does not know a stranger. He can talk to anyone. And so although I didn't have an immediate interest in farming, it's because of his love and his passion for it that, you know, I guess inspired me to want to learn more or help him and support him.
Right.
And I'm sure he could say the same about me and ballet.
Absolutely.
And so although we are not exactly that involved in each other's businesses,
Right.
we're still supportive of one another in that way.
And that's so important, though, like to have a spouse or a partner that is supportive of all of your endeavors.
Yes.
Because the intensity, I mean, I'm a country girl and I know what farming is like. We used to live right next to a farm and they killed my favorite cow. Anyway, so I had a pet cow that really wasn't my pet. But it's so important because when things are very, intense, you need someone to help kind of pour back into you or pour into yourself. So I'm sure you probably could run a ballet school all on your own and do all these amazing, but to have a partner who really truly uplifts you and edifies you and affirms you, that has to be amazing. And those things are so, it's like ballet and farming.
Yes.
I love the contrast of that.
Yes, I know. You know, and I thought when I was auditioning, when I thought, San Antonio, what am I going to do there? And I thought,
Right.
maybe I might meet a black farmer. And I actually did.
No,
I mean, you know,
listen,
those
you hit
thoughts.
the jackpot.
I know.
I'm in a couple of gardening groups, and it's so funny because there's like, you know, maybe 10,000 people and maybe 6,000 are women, and everyone is like, where are the black farmers at? And I'm like, they're probably hiding because all these crazy women are like, where are they?
Yeah.
But to be able to, you know, grow your own food, to have that connection with the earth, that's beautiful.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
it is. And so important. And I think, you know, Drew right now has a hydroponic container, and he's growing, you know, these organic and unique leafy greens. And I think it's really wonderful for me because I love to eat that way, and
Yes.
I'm like a salad every day, please. And so, and I'm hoping that it will help also the students at the ballet school and students in the community have access to food. I think nutrition is a very, very important part
Absolutely.
of us.
Absolutely.
And making those choices. And if it's, you know, there in front of us, you know, go for the lettuce instead of the bag of chips.
Yeah. Well, and there's also the connection of knowing where it comes from.
Right.
Because I remember being younger and, you know, me being partially raised in the country, and I had city cousins, and, you know, they didn't understand that like this tomato came from this plant. It was like, no, you just kind of buy tomatoes at the store. And my mother made sure we were growing like tomatoes and squash and okra and corn and all. So to have all of that readily accessible and you can just get it, and there's something very spiritual about it.
It is. Yeah.
It's
there
beautiful.
is.
Yeah. So does the farm, like now I'm obsessed with the farm.
I know.
But because I love to eat, and I love to eat that way. I
Yes.
pretty much eat everything out of the ground. There's a few things that I'll eat that are processed, but mostly not. But yes, like I ate 7 rolls of Smarties, since our producer's speaking up.
Oh, I have a sweet tooth too.
Well, I literally hadn't had them since I was a child, and I walked in and saw them and was like, oh my goodness. And I was like, I can't eat any more sugar for like the rest of the year. But do you all, I'm curious, does the farm sell like to the public? Are there like, do you do like markets, or is it more of like selling to grocers and restaurants and that sort of thing?
So
because I have people that will like show up tomorrow.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Well, this new venture, he will be selling to the public.
Okay.
So there will
Awesome.
be a little bit of both.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, it is new, but he'll be at Culinaria next week. And so that will be, I think, really big for him.
Yes.
We've been preparing for that. And yeah.
That's amazing. That's real. So now I'm thinking like maybe you can do something with, no, ignore me. I'm like
Yeah.
with the ballet and
oh, absolutely.
I'm
No,
like-
I'm like, get those vegetables at the studio, my friends.
Yes,
Yeah.
that would be amazing. It's just so important to have. There was I had a show a couple of weeks ago, and there were 3 Black women who were all vegans, and it was amazing because one was like a personal trainer, wellness advocate, the 2 others were chefs, and we were just talking about food, how it's so important to just living a certain quality of life, but not everyone has access to it.
Right.
And so we can talk about it all day long about how it's great to eat this and great to eat that, but some people, there's just barriers. So anytime I hear of anything where it's making it more accessible to people, my little heart is like fluttering. So
Yes.
yeah, thank you, Drew.
Yes.
Thank you to you. That's amazing. So I am really curious about, okay, how much time do we have? Because I have so many questions.
Yes, go for it.
Okay, so I'm really curious about how you have structured, I guess, your life in a way that you are able to have like time for Danielle, time for your husband. How long have y'all been married, by the way?
8 years.
Oh. So 8 years in marriage, you have 2 children, and then you have your own wants and needs as a woman outside of those roles.
Absolutely.
What do you do to make time for yourself and to kind of pour into yourself? Because you're kind of running on all cylinders.
Yes.
What do you do to decompress?
I find comfort in, some of my closest friends who give me that peace of mind, really. I'm blessed to be able to have, I don't have loads of friends, but the friends that I do have, I've had for many years, and they're very understanding of, my schedule and my time. And they also are like, hey, wake up, like you're going to miss out on life. Don't just run yourself, run yourself into the ground. And so, but I think it is important as a woman, and a person to have space and to not apologize for the space that you need.
You just said a whole entire word, because I feel like we apologize a lot. Like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't make it because I'm tired. Or, oh, I'm sorry. And it's just self-care.
It's self-care and boundaries, I like to say. There are boundaries. And this is what I can offer. And your expectations of what you think my life should be are not going to move me one direction or another. I am a wife and a mother and a business owner, and I work at a university, and I manage properties, and and we have ranches that my husband has to tend to, and there are a lot of moving parts. And no, I can't be in one place for
It's impossible.
And so I try not to. I remember having a conversation with another businesswoman who I love, who is in Tulum and owns a lot of hotels and restaurants. And I said, my goodness, I said, how do you divide your time? And she looked at me and she said, Danielle, divide? And that was very powerful. And I thought, I'm looking at this the wrong way. I'm thinking like I have to, put these certain
like compartmentalize.
Yes. Yeah. And no. And so I've found it's been a struggle for me. But I am still learning how to have these boundaries. But I think it having the friends, that's
so
my
important.
biggest support.
Yeah.
Especially with my lifestyle, because we're out a lot, we're socializing, performing. And so some might say, oh, I go and I hang out and do this activity. I'm like, I just want to
veg
relax.
out. And there's something really beautiful. I mean, having friends that you don't have to entertain,
Right.
or you don't have to perform or
Right.
be on for. Like, you can just go and sit at a bookstore and everybody reads their own book, or you can go and just watch a movie and know.
Yes.
It's nice to just be silent and be still,
Yes.
and not have to be doing an activity all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's really beautiful. And I really hope that every adult woman could have at least one friend like that, where you don't even have to talk.
Yes. Yes.
That's the best. The absolute best.
Yes.
Well, and speaking, hush. I'm not the friend who doesn't talk.
Yeah.
But I know how to be quiet when it's necessary, because I have friends who are, have told me, really that fast? Oh my goodness. Well, I have friends that have told me, Kirsten, I'm an introvert, so I don't like to talk as much as you do. Like, I have to recharge.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a journey, like learning how to be that friend. And now I actually relish it. I love it. I'm like, oh, this is kind of nice. So I get that.
Yeah.
We got a sign that we have to wrap up, but I have a couple more questions I want to squeeze in. So
yes.
I'm going to just jump in there. So you did mention that you work at a university, and I wanted to talk about that briefly.
Yes.
So which university are you at, and what is your role there?
Incarnate Word, and I teach ballet. I love
Yes.
it. I go in the mornings. Like I said, I love to teach, and so I have a couple of different classes. Go Cardinals!
Yes.
And just trying to educate more people on the world of ballet, and give them that foundation, and teach them those lessons that they can hopefully take on with them into their adult lives.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And then on top of that, I know that you also have worked with San Antonio Ballet Company. I know you've worked with, we have a mutual friend, Tamara. And I know that didn't you all do something together for a recent production?
Okay,
or am I overlapping things?
I do know her. We have not worked together yet, but we are going to very soon. Yes, we are. She is wonderful, and we've tried a couple of times, but our schedules haven't exactly matched up yet. But
scheduling is the bane of every adult's existence, I think. It's so hard to schedule things, because when you're in certain circles, everyone's busy.
Yes.
So
she's always been so supportive, and took classes at my studio when it first opened. And so love her.
Right. So maybe that's what I saw. I thought I had seen your name on something together. But do you often choreograph for other productions outside of your own? Because I feel like I've seen you do a number of those things locally.
Yes. I mean, from time to time I will. I have to tell you, my first I guess fullish length project was this past May. So up until then I would do shorter pieces, 10 minutes or under. And this was, almost an hour, and it was Scheherazade, and we performed at the Tobin Center. We were accompanied by Ayosa. It was beautiful. But that process for me is so grueling, because I'm like a mad woman in my bedroom with the lights off, listening to music and scribbling, and Drew's all coming in, honey, is everything okay? I'm like, close the door.
Have you slept this week? But when inspiration strikes, you can't sleep. You can't stop. It's literally, you're channeling, you're downloading, and you're pulling from all of your training and your experience.
Yes. So I mean, I can do it, and I love to do it, but I put a lot of pressure on myself to really tell the story, and so I enjoy teaching, because it comes more naturally to me.
Right.
I can go in, I can look right away and say, oh, she's back on her leg today. Okay, we're going to do exercises that'll help her stand up a little bit taller. That's a quicker process, more so than choreographing. But yes, I will choreograph for outside entities as well.
Well, we're looking forward to everything that you're doing. I am so, everything that's coming up in the future, the near future, the far off future. Thank you for being here. I want to give you an opportunity to just tell our audience again where to reach you. If they have a little girl or a little boy that they want to sign up, or if they're interested in seeing a performance, where do we go to find you?
Yes. So San Antonio Ballet School is located in Castle Hills, next to Pets Barn, off of Northwest Military, just before West Avenue. And we offer classes starting at 18 months. You can do the class with your child. We also have adult classes, and Offer ballet, point, variations, contemporary tap, jazz, hip hop, acro, flamenco. And so we are an all-inclusive studio and an open space. You come as you are, and we will welcome you.
I love it.
And we're also performing the Nutcracker with the South Texas Symphonic Orchestra. That will be in December. And we have 2 weekends, December 10th and 11th, and then the 17th through the 19th.
Wow. Wonderful. Well, we look forward to it. I think I'm around that time. I'm going to try to make at least one performance. I would love to. And then also, are you on Instagram? I know a lot of people are like, go to Instagram for everything. So is it San Antonio Ballet School on Instagram?
On
and Facebook
Instagram,
as well?
it's SA Ballet School.
Got it. SA Ballet School.
Yes.
Okay, everyone. Well, you know where to find her. Please go and look up this wonderful woman and all the amazing things that she's doing in the community. Danielle, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This was everything. And then some.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you so
really
much.
Did.
Sorry, Kylan, we went a little bit over.